The way I see cyber risk management need to adapt to keep pace to the growing complexity of the digital ecosystem and software supply chain is really around automation. Automation helps in a couple of ways. One, it gives the customer the ability to have real-time data to make real-time decisions. And the other, it helps with relieving some of the manual effort that it takes on your cyber risk management program.
So here's some of the changes I think the industry needs to make to deal with these complexities, both as we continually to digitally transform and at the supply chain side. And we see this a lot, and we're seeing this uptick. And one of the big ones is automation. How is automation going to help us relieve menial tasks and get us more efficient? So one of the big trends we saw in late 23 into 24 and through this year is we're seeing budget pressures. We're seeing still staff layoffs. There's been another set of announcements, right? And so the push to do more with less pushes us down a need to automate. There's just no other way around it. Now, automation has been tough because we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about security data lakes, right? Getting access to the data, APIing in to all these telemetry sources, moving that data to some provider that you hopefully trust to process all this data, difficult, super difficult. If I can leverage a security data lake to centralize data that clients maintain and control, and then I can build automation off of that, now we take some of these investment trends that we're going to see with some of the things we need to change in the industry to support this automation. Now I can start to scale without needing to scale up resources. And that's going to be the big challenge as we continue to move forward in 2025 is still limited budgets, limited staff with an expectation to do more. Okay. So if we can do that, that's great. That also gives us an advantage when we talk about artificial intelligence and AI models, because if I have all this data in one place, guess what? I can now snap in those advanced AI algorithms on top of that data model that I'm using for automation to also help me try to drive some real-time insights into the data above and beyond just some of the automation tasks. That's where things get really, really interesting. And those are the things we have to tackle. When I look at our roadmap for 2025, automation is at the top of that list because that's what clients are looking for. Because again, they're trying to do more with the same number of resources they already have.
I believe that cyber risk management needs to adapt to keep pace with the growing complex of digital ecosystems and software supply chains. And there are a few ways that cyber risk management will do that. Number one, greater automation. Cyber risk management has become, and has always been to some extent, a data problem. You have a lot of disparate data sources feeding in to the analytical problem of cybersecurity. You have threat and vulnerability information. You have control information. You have risk information, actuarial data. You have open source frameworks like MITRE ATT&CK and Defend. You have asset systems, which are incredibly complex and have only improved recently. A lot of these data issues have persisted in organizations to the extent that organizations often don't feel, when you talk to the people in charge of cybersecurity, they often don't feel like they're getting ahead of anything. They feel like they're trying to fall behind less slowly. That's basically how they feel. So automation is massive in risk assessment to, sort of relieve menial tasks, reduce distraction. I mean, it can break the mind of a cybersecurity professional to go through much of the data they have to do to complete their analyses. It's very difficult. And, cyber people are great at it, but anything that can help them prioritize threat, vulnerability, risk, control data, asset data, and do it in a decision support system way is huge. Digital ecosystems and software supply chains, just incredibly complex. It's just another layer of complexity, right? It's more of the data problem. So there's really no way to get ahead of this without greater automation, without the ability to take massive amounts of data, fit it into a taxonomy, and then get it running in models quickly. AI can help with the classification of all this data, but pipelines need to be set up and analysis needs to be done. And We think that the problem is really, really purpose built for graph neural networks and machine learning atop that, because there's a deterministic layer, but there's also a probabilistic layer. And those structures are really powerful at handling that. So risk assessment, cyber risk assessment used to be done on 3 months, 6 months cadences. That's just not possible anymore. You need to understand your risk posture almost daily. Your risk posture can change daily, given what's coming in through, open source intelligence, threat feeds, vulnerability feeds. That context shifts. It's so complex how it shifts that it really has surpassed sort of human analytical capabilities. So decision support systems that are purpose-built by, for AI on this is really how to do it. It's also going to help the cybersecurity skills shortage, because it's going to free up employees to do more proactive, more remediate, and to get ahead of things instead of always being bogged down in some giant spreadsheet that they can't tease answers out of.